Now, the ceremony of induction and the extreme oath of the Jesuits, Library of Congress, catalog card, there it is. You have been taught to insidiously plant the seeds of jealousy and hatred between communities, provinces and states that were at peace, and incite them to deeds of blood involving them in war with each other, and to create revolutions and civil wars in countries that were independent and prosperous, cultivating the art and the sciences and enjoying the blessings of peace, to take sides with the combatants and to act secretly in concert with your brother Jesuit, who might be engaged on the other side, but openly opposed to that with which you might be connected, only that the church may be the gainer in the end, in the conditions fixed in the treaties for peace, and that the end justifies the means. Whoa!
All right, everybody, good evening. We begin the readout tonight with two cases, which will once again tell us where we are as a country. Whether armed, primarily white men can continue to take matters into their own hands and serve as judge, jury, and executioner, legally, under the law. There's the trial of teenage vigilante Kyle Rittenhouse, where jurors just moments ago broke for the day. And the trial of father and son Greg and Travis McMichael and their neighbor William Roddy Bryan. They stand accused of murdering 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery in what many have called a modern-day lynching. The three men claim that this was just a citizen's arrest gone wrong. Today, Arbery's mother had to witness horrifying autopsy images of her son. She walked out. The family's been receiving moral support from a number of faith leaders. Yesterday, the lawyer for Bryan requested that Reverend Jesse Jackson be removed from the courtroom, just as they had done previously with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Jesse Jackson, I believe, is still here. Of course, he is, Your Honor, I think we all know, an icon in the civil rights movement. He, not just a witness to it, he is the personification of it. And in other circumstances, I think everybody would be happy to have their picture taken, maybe get an autograph. But in the context of this trial, we object to his presence in the public gallery inside the courtroom. I guess the next question is, which pastor is next? Is Raphael Warnock going to be the next person appearing this afternoon?
The fact he has to read those names like he's reading a script shows how incompetent he is as a lawyer. 5 years ago, Kevin Goe was fired as a public defender because he insufficiently represented defendants and mistreated assistant attorneys in the office. Kevin Goe responded with, "I am confident that I will be reinstated." And where does he make a name for himself? Calling out black pastors. Let's be specific now. Boule Christian pastors, handpicked by the Ku Klux Jesuits to incite racial tension among the dying out civil rights Negro spirituals. Symbolism is all you need to understand in this trial. It's managed for a specific purpose. Kevin Goe just so happens to be wearing a petal swirl tie. In this case, the Masonic golden ratio called the Fibonacci sequence, which has heavy ties in Freemasonry. Never forget, all three of these men are under the same umbrella, but holding only to the oaths that yoked them to the Roman Catholic Church.
Meanwhile, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the jury in the Rittenhouse case had been deliberating since this morning. Rittenhouse shot and killed 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum and 26-year-old Anthony Huber. He also shot Gage Grosskreutz, nearly severing his right arm.
After Rittenhouse posts bail, his handlers take him to a bar where you never get the identity of who he's with, but he throws up the quote-unquote white power symbol. Media runs with it, and your favorite Democratic race baiter chimes in. The white supremacist murderer is just a kid, but the victims who were standing up for black lives are rioters and looters. Look, tearing up Kenosha, Wisconsin did nothing for black lives. And since when do white supremacists shoot and kill other white folk? The property he was defending without the owner's consent appeared to be not white. So a white supremacist don't shoot white folk or protect non-white folks' businesses. She continues. When we marched in Ferguson, white supremacists would hide behind a hill near where Michael Brown Jr. was murdered and shoot at us. There is no proof to back up that story. That's how desperate they are at selling this. This isn't a black issue.
Rittenhouse has pleaded not guilty, claiming self-defense. The prosecution argued that Rittenhouse was a chaos tourist who lied about what happened that night and provoked the initial interaction with Rosenbaum, which set in motion the chain of events that night in August of last year. Since then, Rittenhouse has become a right-wing hero. Mark and Patricia McCloskey, remember them? The St. Louis couple pardoned by Donald Trump when he was president for aiming guns at Black Lives Matter protesters. Well, they've showed up the past 2 days to support Rittenhouse.
Another blatant attempt to make it a black issue. They flew in the McCloskeys from St. Louis, who just so happens to be a Senate candidate. Look at his mannish wife wearing black and white during that fake event. Y'all don't want to believe it, but these trans Baphomet pairings are getting normalized in front of your faces. You can't tell me that's not a man. And you know what's hilarious about this quote-unquote white power sign? It still means 666 in different organizations. Proud Boys, Bloods, Kappa, Hollywood.
In another weird twist, Rittenhouse actually participated in choosing the final 12 men and women who will decide his fate by pulling numbers from a tumbler, like a macabre game show. The 6 he randomly chose become alternates. Here's what that looked like.
Please put them in the tumbler, and the bailiff will rotate it, and then the defendant will draw out 6 of the numbers.
Now, there was a very real possibility that he would face an all-white jury, but after that drawing, 4 white men, 1 black man, and 7 white women will decide whether he is innocent or not.
They want you to assume he lauded his own jurors. It's Wisconsin, y'all. What do you expect? But if you want a brief history lesson on how Masonic handling of this jury box stands out, let me introduce you to the slave codes of 1705.
We'll return after these messages.
In 1705, Virginia passed another law dedicated to regulating the movement and behavior of enslaved people. It was called an Act Concerning Servants and Slaves. This act banned black people from owning white servants and penalized those who presided over the marriage between a white and black person. It banned enslaved people from owning weapons. Other laws around the same time banned black people, regardless of their servitude status, from testifying against whites in court.
America, boy, I tell you. This is really an open and shut case, born on paper, but it has to be sensationalized for that good old Hegelian dialect principle. So they put Michael on the stand where he could easily plead the fifth.
Give my side of the story. I want to explain what happened.
Yeah, like that. He's alive after shooting someone else's child and cries when he thinks about dying.
I was thinking of my son. It sounds weird, but that was the first thing that hit me.
What did you do?
I shot.
Why?
He had my gun.
Symbolism, folks. See deeper than emotion. The Fibonacci spiral, which resembles the number 6. Any half-assed lawyer would tell his client to get emotional so you can convey some sort of fake remorse for taking the life of another human being, whether it's wrong or right.
When I look at that video with that guy pointing the gun to my son's head, I thought he was going to die. This guy just pointed his gun at his head.
Let's be logical for a minute. I know I'm fighting against scripture where it says there won't be many wise at this time, but bear with me. This entire system uses, or should I say exalts, the ignorant in their folly to bring about drastic change to control the righteous.
Arbery was about 2 miles from home. He stops briefly in front of a house under construction across the street and then goes inside. Someone is watching. At 1:08 p.m., the man calls 911 to report a trespasser.
These incidents do not happen to Torah keepers or the righteous. Followers of the law, statutes, and commandments do not be in places that they shouldn't be in. The Most High sees the past, present, future at the same time. So he saw what Jacob Blake or Ahmaud Arbery's life from beginning to the end and chose not to intervene on that day. Simple. At the end of the day, these 2 black men are being used to bring about gun reform on American citizens. That's it. You Negroes better start raising your frequency or keep being snared by these troglodytes.
We'll return after these messages.
Not long after the Revolutionary War and the adoption of the Constitution, a national debate arose on how to control fugitive slaves in the United States. There were multiple laws and policies created to prevent uprisings and rebellions, and to generally control the movement of enslaved people. But the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 is perhaps the most expansive far-reaching manifestation of this effort. It was signed into law in February 1793 by President George Washington, and the act did three main things. One, it empowered enslavers to capture enslaved people who ran away from their plantations. This meant that any enslaver could bring an escaped enslaved person before any federal or state magistrate and reclaim the property the law said was theirs. Two, it stated that there was no need to have a trial by jury to return an enslaved person to bondage. It only required oral testimony from the person making the claim. And three, it stated that anyone who interfered with the recapturing of a fugitive slave could be fined, imprisoned, or sued by the enslaver. Thus, the Fugitive Slave Clause was born, not to be confused with the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Clause said that no person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another, shall, in consequence of any law or regulation therein, be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered up on claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. Let's go to the thought bubble. Though the Northerners allowed the Fugitive Slave Clause to be included in the Constitution, they did what a lot of lawmakers and law enforcement do when they don't like something. They just didn't enforce the law. From a moral standpoint, many Northerners viewed the Fugitive Slave Clause as kidnapping and essentially decided that they would just ignore this portion of the Constitution. When the South said, hey guys, you're not really enforcing the law, anti-slavery sentiments were rising in the North, and some Northern states even started passing state laws banning the kidnapping of free people of color and criminalize wrongful enslavement. All of this prompted Southerners to move away from the Constitution as their main enforcement mechanism and instead use Congress to force the Northern states into compliance. So they went to Congress and started lobbying for a new law that would more consistently enforce the terms of the Fugitive Slave Clause. And what they got was basically a law that provided more details about how the spirit of the Fugitive Slave Clause could be put into practice.
Spirit. America's laws, acts, constitutions mean nothing on paper. It's the spirit that enslaves y'all. You think you ever going to win in a country whose founders' first thought was to put a damn pentagram in the nation's capital? You think Boule pastors beholden to Prince Hall, York Rite Freemasonry is going to change the demonic spirits in America? Or a black liberal TV host beholden to Delta, the Order of the Eastern Star, and its founder Rob Morris is going to change the demonic outcome of America? From black Hollywood, black music, black government, black religion, black social movements, they are all beholden to the principalities of the Roman Catholic Church.
You don't understand. I ain't scared of you, mother.
This here is Jean-Baptiste Janssen. He ruled from 1946 to 1964, and he looks like a charming gentleman, very cheerful. But nevertheless, you can see that this photograph was taken from the Saturday Evening Post, 1959, and this is what he is in command of. And now we will want to deal with these issues in the next session. He controls the following secret societies: the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. So he is in control of the Knights of Malta. The Scottish Rite Shrine of Freemasonry, the Order of the Illuminati, the Knights of Columbus, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, B'nai B'rith, the Nation of Islam and its private army called the Fruit of Islam, the Mafia Commission, Opus Dei, along with a host of lesser brotherhoods. So each one of those secret societies is controlled by the Jesuits.
Honestly, I don't know how people do it. Thrown back and forth with doctrine after doctrine, getting Hegelian dialected so you could be on your knees yearning for a false Christ from these people. I see this world differently. It's the righteous versus the wicked, and they come in all shapes and colors. Yes, there are the young ones that get caught up between these demonic revelings, but none of us are strong enough to take the beast down. So I rest on these verses. For know ye that our Maker will assuredly avenge us on all our enemies, according to all that they have done to us. Also that the consummation which the Most High will make is very nigh, and his mercy that is coming, and the consummation of his judgment is by no means far off. For the day of Yahuwah is near upon all the heathen. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. your reward shall return upon your own head.
You never know. That's the point.